Okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jen Kretzer from the Wild Center, use she, her pronouns, and I am coming to you today from the contemporary and historical lands of the Haudenosaunee people. Welcome to Clean this week. We do have a presenter, which I'll introduce in just a moment, but before we get started, does anybody have any announcements?
Have to wear them in the classroom, but we don't. Yeah, I think that's
It sounds like we're getting some feedback a little bit. Looks like Gina, you have your hand up for announcements, and then Jim.
Sweet. I'll say, everyone's probably getting tired of me saying this, but our webinar series starts tomorrow for Clean, and we have a webinar each week for the next like 6 weeks, ending with Tamara's En-ROADS webinar. So make sure to check out that information. I'm going to put it in the chat and share and attend if you can.
Great, thank you, Gina. Jim.
Hi, thank you. Hey, Jen. So let's see, just updating the Smithsonian Natural History Museum staff are now meeting with our students in DC and Maryland about making the museum more energy efficient. It's really a pleasure to see the students and this federal agency, the Smithsonian, working so closely together. They're very eager and they love what the students are able to do. Just to think from an educator standpoint, the students are learning STEM, they're learning language arts, they're learning communication, visual arts. How do you communicate with people who are ahead of a gigantic museum? And lastly, for another subject at some point, there's an interesting where the pushback about what we're doing is. One of the things that some very powerful corporations don't think that what we're doing is something that can be scaled. And I think what I've learned is that's a code word for it. It's something that we don't like to see happen. And that's when they say it can't be scaled. It's like, we don't want to support it because it clearly can be scaled. So anyways, mostly just really fantastic what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I saw Ingrid's hand up.
Yeah, I'm going to put in a plug for Don, who's talking tomorrow night in our Science in the Pub or virtual pub series. Let's see, Don, I think your talk is when we change how we get energy, we change history. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. And if you happen to be in Buffalo, you're welcome to join us in the actual pub, but we'll be live streaming at 6 o'clock tomorrow night from the pub.
That's it.
That sounds fun.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other announcements or anything from anybody? I'm not seeing anything. Gina, are you? Okay, awesome. So I think we'll go right into today's speaker. I'm really excited about our speaker today, actually, because Ankur, I think you and I met at AGU a number of years ago, right? When you were still a student.
Definitely. We met in December of 2018.
Yes.
That was my introduction to Clean.
Yeah,
So,
I remember that so clearly. And I'm so like all the stuff you're doing right now is actually, it's just incredible. So I was, when Gina let me know that I was facilitating and who I got to introduce, I was like really excited about it because we were, I just remember you really clearly, even though that 2018 feels like a little bit of a lifetime ago. But just to get everybody up to speed, Ankur is a geospatial data scientist for Everpact, a startup focused on monitoring greenhouse gas emissions in cities. He's also the director of operations at Mycelium, a nonprofit focused on open source solutions for accelerating the circular economy. He's a super passionate young man who's really excited about urban sustainability, climate solutions, and environmental ed, and has his own YouTube channel, and has also worked with NASA and Earth observations and projects. And if you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, please do. I know you're going to probably talk about this a bit, Ankur, but it's so great. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking, turn it over to you, and really looking forward to your presentation today.
Thank you so much, Jen, for the kind intro. Should I share my screen for the presentation? Oh,
Yeah, you should have access.
sounds good. Yeah, 1 sec. See if this works. Can you see the screen?
Looks good.
All right, awesome, awesome. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me and letting me give this presentation. It means a lot. I'm really happy to be here. And the dream, ultimate goal for the YouTube channel is to reach educators and reach classrooms. So I'm just really happy to be here. Thank you. So this presentation is focused on climate education for action through YouTube. So how can videos play a role in climate education? So obviously, I wanted to just start with a quote saying, "We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children." So what's happening right now is intergenerational issue. Climate change can be seen through that lens, where certain generations have been more responsible than the other, but we've still created a society highly dependent on fossil fuels. May it be convenient for now, later on, future generations are going to pay most of the costs. So when we think about climate change, especially young people, the words that come to mind are fear, anxiety, anger, wreck, guilt, sad, dystopia. So all of these are negative emotions associated with climate anxiety / climate change in general. When people are asked it, very few people are actually optimistic or even have some hope that we can actually do something about it. And this represents a problem. It's more of a psychological problem than a technical or scientific problem. Things may look bad, but there is no hope. There is very little focus on the actual solutions and what we can do, what we can apply in terms of climate action. And you guys are part of the climate action, so kudos to you guys. So 60% of the youth is anxious or extremely worried about climate change. This was based on a survey done by the University of Bath in the UK. And they surveyed about 10,000 children in 10 different countries in Asia and Europe. And these were the results. And 4 out of 10, 40% of young adults between 16 to 25 were thinking of not having kids due to many other reasons. But one of the factors was also climate or eco-anxiety, given the predictions of the future that we're going to face. So given these results, things are looking highly anxious in terms of climate change in the future. So one hopeful thing that happened in 2018, 2019, climate protests all over the globe, school strikes, Greta Thunberg led a lot of this. But then in 2020, COVID hit. So much of this action was tried and done digitally. However, this massive wave that was beginning just suffered, at least in the short term, due to the lockdowns, due to all the things that are happening in 2020. But this was, I would say, a start of the young generation's climate consciousness, turning point in time where more and more people are becoming conscious, aware, and wanting systemic change. So this was a pivoting point, I would say. And so now that I mentioned that, I want to focus more on how does YouTube play a role? Like, well, where does this come into climate action and climate education? So let's start with why YouTube? YouTube, what's the point of going on YouTube and making these videos? You could do workshops, go into classrooms, and it may be even a better, more immersive experience. So there are 2 parts to this answer. One is a personal one, and one is what YouTube is. So I'll describe the personal one first. So in 2015, my journey began. I actually grew up in India, Mumbai, for 10 years, and then I came to the US in 2015 and started studying earth science and physics at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. Then time went on, I became a teacher assistant for a course on air and water pollution. It also included a module on climate change. And this lasted until I graduated in 2019. So this was a 2-year part-time teacher assistant position. And in that time, I really, really enjoyed teaching. I hosted classroom workshops and even events outside the classroom. And I really enjoyed learning as well as teaching about environmental science as well as the actions students can take in that course. And I began thinking, how can I continue this in a way that is fulfilling and in a way that I'm performing on my passion, I'm acting on my passion for sustainability and climate and environmental education. In 2018, and that's where I met Jen and even Tamara and other members of Clean in AGU in DC. So that was kind of eye-opening as to there's this whole group all over the country focusing on environmental education and climate literacy that I wasn't aware about. And it was really, really fantastic to not only meet the people, but also attend some of the presentations that they gave. And in 2019, I really seriously began producing videos on YouTube. This was on environmental health, pollution, and climate change. And then I graduated from college in December. And of course, I started a position at the university with a team of NASA. And then now I'm a geospatial data scientist. The journey continues. And I'm still doing this part-time, this YouTube channel. But as to why I chose YouTube, it's the second most visited website ever. Does anyone know what's the first most visited website? Any guesses? You can say it or put it in the chat.
Yeah, Google.
Google is, Google is a search engine, definitely the most used one. But if there's a specific website like youtube.com, something.com, it's actually Facebook. Twitter would be probably third or fourth, but Facebook is the number one. And then right on the second one is YouTube at the moment. And approximate number of users are 2 billion every month. That's over a quarter of the world's population uses YouTube every month. And watch time, it's 1 billion hours every day. So people spend a total of 1 billion hours daily on YouTube. And 5 billion videos are watched daily. And that's even more. I haven't included this metric, but there's another feature of YouTube called YouTube Shorts. That's between anywhere between 0 to 60 seconds. These are very short videos. They're trying to mimic TikTok, but basically these are even more. Like so far within less than a year, there have been 5 trillion views. Yeah, 5 trillion views of YouTube Shorts. Basically, it's the largest video platform on the internet, and maybe climate education has a chance on this. Most of it is used for entertainment, but there's also a really good place for education here. So that's a reason why YouTube began. Well, I began on YouTube. And so here are some trends regarding climate information and climate change education on YouTube. If you search for climate change, the term or global warming, 77% of all climate change related videos or topic-based videos are uploaded by news channels. So this may include ABC News, CNN, MSNBC. Many are kind of alarmist. They may be based on the science, but news channels really want the numbers and ratings to go high and views to go high. So they're not optimized for telling the entire truth in terms of scientific, data-based, evidence-based storytelling or information. And 33%, less than 33% of the videos, so less than a third of any video on climate change on YouTube, don't even attempt, or actually, I take that back, 67% of videos don't even attempt how to act on climate change. So only less than a third of the videos even try to describe what solutions can you implement. And that's a big gap. We have the information related to climate change on YouTube, but very little as to what can we do about it? How can any individual, how can a community member, how can a city official or an employee do anything about it? So this is a gap in terms of climate information on YouTube. The second issue, this is a big one, I'm sure many of you are aware of it, is climate misinformation on YouTube. This is straight up misinformation regarding climate change is a hoax, it's a scam, it's the biggest fraud in history, and these videos have hundreds of thousands, some of them have millions of views on YouTube. So this is from a bubble image from this nonprofit called Avaz, And you can click on these links as well on the slides, so you can feel free to explore more. So there are three aspects to this climate misinformation. First thing, for the search term global warming, if you look it up, even climate change, 16% of the top 100 videos had misinformation about climate change. And these are videos that are recommended by YouTube, either on the sidebar or the homepage, depending on what you watch. So even if you're watching something related to the environment, YouTube could recommend such videos because they fall in the category of climate change. Now, 70% of users' time is spent on YouTube-driven recommendations. So when a video gains hundreds of thousands or millions of views, that means that YouTube is recommending it to many viewers globally. And it's then what we call becoming viral. So these videos that are climate misinformation, many of them get picked up by this YouTube recommendation engine, and that's how they gain in views. So despite them being not accurate, they're the ones users are seeing more. And yeah, a total, what Abbas found is that the climate misinformation videos had a total of 21.1 million views totally. And it's much more than actual climate change related presentations or educational scientific presentations. So you might have come across these channels like Prager University, Fox News, Steven Crowder, Suspicious Observers, and these are some of the titles of actual videos that are still up there. The Truth About Global Warming, No Alerts Matches Global Warming, Climate Change is a Scam, is a hoax. All of these are, this is a big issue on YouTube, and it's regarding other related topics as well, not just climate change. But so this is one of the biggest issues. So you can summarize the trio of climate info using this Venn diagram. One is misinformation, and I would say a lack of systems view, because if we go back, all of these videos, I've actually seen all of these videos as well, they don't talk about any related issue. The only thing they talk about is how CO2 is related or not related to temperature rise. So they only focus on that aspect of climate change. None of the other related issues, such as biodiversity loss, air pollution, water pollution, deforestation, none of that is even mentioned or discussed in any of these videos. After watching them, I can conclude that. So there's a lack of systems view, systems thinking on these videos. The second bubble is alarmism. So there's a small category of videos which focuses on the world's going to end, we're all doomed. So that's one other aspect. And then the third bubble is lack of solutions. Like I said, less than a third of videos attempt to describe solutions, and many of them are not specific. They may be things like switch off your light, drive your car less, and they do matter, but things can be more specific given the resources we have currently. So the trio of these three bubbles is the gap I'm trying to fill, and many others, as you'll see. I'm not the only one. Obviously, there are many other channels, and I'll mention them at the end as well. So some solutions for YouTube are data-based videos. Actual facts, actual research needs to be presented on YouTube with references. Many of these videos that I mentioned, even the ones shown by the news channels, don't have references. They don't cite their sources. If they do, it's their own website's news article. So they don't cite the authors who may have written the research or the papers, peer-reviewed articles. None of that's in the description, which is the second point. References to peer-reviewed articles, even if people don't check them as often, I believe it's really important to include them. And I do my best to include them either in a Google document or in the video description. Then the third part is engaging videos. Many videos that I watch for creating my own videos are like hour-long presentations on YouTube by scientists or some institute that focuses, which is a climate change think tank. And many people don't want to watch hour-long or longer videos. So they need to be concise, but also engaging. And the one biggest challenge on YouTube is maintaining audience retention. And that means how much of the video does the audience watch? If it's close to 50%, you're doing awesome. Mine has been between 30 and 40% at the moment. Going to half is a big deal. And it's really difficult to maintain that. So the way videos pick up on YouTube is if the audience retention exceeds 50%. And that's the challenge. So making engaging videos, especially in our niche of education and climate education, this is a particularly challenging focus. The last aspect of solutions is call to climate action. So specific resources and practical tips with examples need to be described in the video. And it's best if the person, like the host, whoever is the video creator, is actually doing what they're saying. Many people I've seen are saying something which is great, but not doing it themselves. So we need to lead by example. And I think that's critical. So these four aspects constitute what I'm trying to bring to climate education on YouTube. So focus points. Okay, so specific climate action tips. So instead of something that's non-specific, something that's vague, provide resources using links or websites and examples of real life climate action. The second thing is systems view. So focusing on co-benefits of climate action. So not just carbon dioxide is going to decrease, thereby mitigating our temperature rise, but also there are economic benefits to that. There's social benefits to that. Health of societies can be improved. And we'll look into that a bit in the later slides. Along with not just co-benefits, but along with interconnections of climate change with other issues. It's a deeply, deeply interconnected issue. Climate change can be just the top of a circle, and below that, we have land cover change, biodiversity loss, plastic pollution. All of that is connected to climate change, and bringing that to the table is something that's not on YouTube as popularly yet. And then finally, personalizing the message. So how does climate change affect the viewer? And this is obviously you have to have an idea of who the viewer is, but how can your viewer benefit either socially, financially, or other ways from climate action? So this might give a personal reason for the viewer to actually engage instead of just altruistic ones. And so these are the three components that constitute my thinking in any video I'm trying to create. All right, so now let's move to systems thinking and what we're doing with climate change education. So I'm very sure that many of you have seen Planetary Boundaries and studied this perhaps. This was researched in by Johan Rockström back in 2009. It's improved since then. And what it's showing is 9 boundaries, Earth boundaries that we should try not to exceed as a civilization. So we have biosphere integrity, so biodiversity in terms of genetic and functional diversity. Climate change, this was related to CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere and greenhouse gases. Novel entities, this is still a question mark from as far as I know. And these are related to chemicals and endocrine disruption and other things in the water and air that we may not have measured accurately. Then one positive planetary boundary story is stratospheric ozone depletion. Of course, the Montreal Protocol mitigated that to an extent, large extent, and now we see stratospheric ozone recovering after banning CFCs. Then there's aerosol loading. Again, there are uncertainties regarding that. Ocean acidification. This one we've exceeded. Phosphorus and nitrogen flows into the water. There's excessive nutrient pollution given our agricultural practices, freshwater use, and then land system change. So all of these are planetary boundaries and deeply interconnected to the issue of climate change. So how do we bring this to the table? How do we don't need to focus on this in every video, but weaving in this concept into videos and forming that systems picture, systems thinking for the viewer is really essential. It gives a holistic picture as to what is happening. And then as far as the solution goes, one of my favorite diagrams is that of the donut economy, because it includes the planetary boundaries in the outer circle, that's the ecological ceiling, but then it also includes what the human needs are. What kind of needs do we need to have in order for people to live a fulfilling, meaningful life? And that includes energy, water, food, health, education, income, peace, political voice, social equity, gender equality, housing networks. all of these form what Kate Raworth calls the social foundation. So the donuts in between the inner and outer rim is the safe and just space for humanity, ecologically just as well as socially just, and fulfilling our needs. And this is, I think, the biggest challenge that we face in the 21st century, meeting the needs of people while not exceeding our planetary boundaries. So this is my personal lens through which I view climate action. And I still need to create videos focused on this, but it gives me a way of thinking about it. How many of you have come across the donut economy or even read the book? Okay, great. Awesome. Wonderful. So let's see. All right, so this is just a diagram I found. I need to put the source, but basically it's the interconnectedness of climate change related issues. So climate change, as I mentioned, is not just, and you know this very well, is not just temperature rise and CO2 or greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to face increase in extreme heat, declines in crop production, decrease in timber production, increase in insect pests. All these interconnected feedback loops need to be involved in the communication of climate change. Many YouTube videos, even well-meaning ones, just focus on temperature, CO2. None of this is even mentioned or described. So the systems view of issues and systems view of solutions, I think is really important to bring to the table in classrooms, in communicating anything regarding climate change. So moving on, these are the co-benefits. This was from a paper in 2019. And this is just one example of energy efficiency improvement, but there are many such examples. So let me start with a personal anecdote. I did my college in Huntsville, Alabama. It's not well known for climate action, climate education for that matter. And we had to learn through experience, how do we communicate climate change to other educators or city officials? And what do they care about? They don't care about reducing greenhouse gas emissions or even like environmental benefits for that matter as much. What they care about is the local economy, public health, social well-being, affordable power. So all of these other co-benefits, which the audience may care about more than just environmental aspects, are really important as well, because again, this depends on the audience that you're talking to. And this is one lesson I learned sometimes the hard way in climate communication. But these all systemic views of co-benefits. It's not just about reducing emissions and decarbonization, but here's this entire cascade of positive effects if we do this. And climate change, I would say, is just a canary in the coal mine. It's a symptom of a highly dysfunctional economy that prioritizes profit over people and the planet. So we need to fix that in a systems way. It's a systems issue. Systems thinking is our best bet to solving it. So yeah, the topics therefore focusing, which I try to focus on my YouTube channel, are not just climate change, but also biodiversity loss, deforestation, plastic pollution, indigenous cultural knowledge, water pollution, environmental policies. All of these are interconnected. And I've been learning how to connect these videos by mentioning one of the most related ones at the end. And the idea is to create a kind of Marvel universe of environmental videos on the YouTube channel where they're all connected and leading the viewer from place to place within these topics. So again, that's being created. Still a lot of work to be done. And that brings me to target audience avatars. This is something I hadn't started with. I just started creating videos because I felt passionate about it. But on YouTube, it's really, really crucial to know your audience. And that's critical in any public speaking event. But on YouTube, what happens is if you know your target audience, YouTube then shows it by predicting, shows it to people by predicting who your target audience will be. So my target audience tends to be between high school, college, and early professionals and young parents, usually in the range of 16 to 34 years. And I'll show a graph later on. describing this. Interests. So what might this audience be interested in? If we pick a person, what might that average audience person be interested in? So it's sustainability, eco-friendly behaviors, zero waste or minimizing waste, science documentaries, sustainable technologies, healthy eating, maybe, and maybe biomimicry. How can we emulate nature and nature-based solutions? What hobbies they might have. So this is a person who might likely be connected more with the environment or trying to be more nature immersed person. So hiking and camping, they might like, cycling, outdoors activities, reading, sci-fi, nonfiction perhaps, gardening because it is growing food in a more sustainable and local manner, animal care, volunteering, coding, they might be activities they enjoy as well. And what professions or what college majors they might be involved in. Again, this is the audience that I'm aiming for, not necessarily the audience that I'll get, but based on the content, YouTube tries to tries to bring this kind of audience because their interests will match what they're watching. So professions might be earth and climate science, environmental studies, physics or chemistry, biology, ecology, civil engineering, and even in the humanities department, sociology, psychology, anthropology, and data science, because there are a lot of new upcoming applications of data science in climate-based mitigation tech. So all of these are aspects of what an avatar, what an average audience person watching these videos might look like. And you might have done this exercise for your own audience as well. So I'm interested to hear that later as well. So this is the actual data. What audience I am actually getting on YouTube. So this graph is from YouTube Analytics. And what I see is the top geographies watching these videos tend to come from US and Canada, and then followed by India and Brazil. It helps that I still have family and friends in India. So some people from India also found this channel. And then the age range tends to vary. So 18 to 24 years old, it's only 10%. Most, over half of the audience is between 25 to 34 years, and then slightly going above 35 to 44 and 45 to 54. So there's a diversity in age. I'm trying to aim for more young because, but it doesn't matter. Like whoever enjoys watching these videos and can learn, that's awesome. So this is the real data that YouTube is showing. Now, video framework. So how do I arrange these videos? What is the formula for any of these videos? And it varies from topic to topic, but the generalized framework can be divided into three aspects. First one is the introduction or the hook. So it's really, really important for this hook to be something engaging, which makes the viewer want to watch the video longer. I didn't include a graph of this, but if you've ever seen YouTube analytics for any non-viral video, what usually tends to happen is in the introduction, first 30 seconds, there's a big, massive drop, 40 to 50% down. And after that, it continues decreasing slowly. So in those first 30 seconds, it's really critical to have something that grabs the audience's attention and makes them curious to finish the video or at least watch more. And so what helps with that is good storytelling. And I'm trying to improve at this art as well. It starts with an anecdote or some shot, which is really crazy. Like, has anyone seen videos by, and I know this is not the type of videos you might want to watch, but Mr. Beast or even this guy, Mark Rober. Any of you have seen these people? Okay, yes, okay, yeah. So the way they start their videos, it's something to learn from, because they start with something absolutely crazy, like here's this giant pizza that I ate, or here's this I cleaned a beach with 100 different people and collected a ton of trash, something like that. And that may not apply to our type of videos, but those tactics are really useful on YouTube because that makes the audience want to watch more. Mr. Beast, Mark Rober, these people have an audience retention of above 80%. That's really, really incredible. And if we want to emulate that, we need to keep we need to be creative as to how we engage our audience when it comes to climate education, and not boring the audience, making it fun. So that's a challenge. That's in the hook. Then comes the problem and impact. So describing the problem and how it may affect the viewer personally, and going over the latest research on the topic, and like adding a bit of humor, memes kind of thing in the middle as well, because what tends to happen is this is very educational, informative content, and it can get boring easily if we just focus on the facts. So having the sense of humor, having this, and again, I'm not the best at this, I'm trying to get better, but it's something I'm learning. And over 2.5 years of doing this, this is what I've been trying to focus on. And then ending with call to actions. So detailed examples of how the viewer can actually help solve the issue, giving resources, giving the links, showing websites, or even showing people and examples of what actually works in terms of solutions. So these three aspects, these three chapters are the way I design a video. Most videos are following this formula. So let's go to the next one. Yeah, levels of action. And this was in the climate anxiety video as well. And this is a framework that I'm trying to follow more and more in these next set of videos that I'm going to release. It's level 1 to 4. So level 1 is individual climate actions, where you can say things like not eating as much meat, having a more plant-based diet, not flying as frequently, driving your car less. All of these are individual climate actions, which is an individual choice that matters, that is in control, that the person is in control of. And it helps, but we know that it's not the only answer to climate action. Level 2 is involving and talking to family and friends. So expanding beyond yourself and involving those who are closest to you, family, friends, peers, coworkers. That all constitutes level 2, where you're talking, creating these ideas or planting these seeds of climate action, and helping them implement their own solutions. That's level 2. And that can help because then it can lead to a network effect if they talk to other people and so on. Now, level 3, I think, and even the person who formulated these, Will Grant from the Pachamama Alliance, thinks that it's really the most impactful level, because level 3 is community-based or city-based local action. So these are actions where you can create sustainable models in institutions, in schools, in cities, and other cities or other institutions can look at that and emulate that. So you're creating models that are sustainable. Maybe they reduce emissions, maybe they have a garden, perhaps they have a solar array, and creates economic benefits. And then other schools want to do the same thing because it worked. So this kind of action, local level 3, local community-based action, has high leverage because it's not just individual, and it's not just federal or government mandated. It's coming from within your own locality or city, and it can generate this domino effect, perhaps, of other institutions wanting to do the same. And a beautiful example that I can think of right off the top of my head is a school in Arkansas, which implemented solar arrays on their rooftops, and they were able to save 15,000 or 20,000 per year because of that. And that led to an increase in the salary of the teachers. So the teachers were happy, energy was saving, and they reduced their cost of energy. So it was a win-win-win. And now other cities and other schools in Arkansas want to do that. So that's level 3. Level 4 is political actions. It involves protesting, petition signing, lobbying, and of course this is effective, but we know that governments don't necessarily care. We need to put a lot of pressure, and change is much more organic and maybe even faster if it's done on level 3 scales, where it's cities, neighborhoods, communities, because it's from the ground up and from within the city, from within the community itself. It's not forced or mandated. So yeah, these are the 4 actions that I divide into, and it doesn't have to be climate action. You can imagine this level for literally any action. Even social actions can follow this framework. So here it brings me to my journey, or incomplete journey, the plan for YouTube. So I'm still in this phase, I would say, producing and learning. I'm not, I do have confidence in my video skills, but there's still a lot to learn and a lot to improve with. So I'm in the phase of increasing audience retention, improving with each video, and still completing that Marvel universe of systemic climate actions and solutions. And then sometime in the middle, I want to move to more interviews, conversations with change makers. Could be some of you who are doing some amazing work. So change makers, educators, scientists on specific climate related or environment related topics. And I've done a few of these in the past, but now I have a better idea of how to make them really engaging. So this would be something down the line, maybe later this year. And then once I can do this more, right now I'm doing this as along with a full-time job, so it's really difficult to find time. But once I can release some of that pressure, once I can do this more part-time or have more funding maybe, then I can demonstrate real examples of technologies, communities, and cities, maybe even visit some places which mitigate climate change using local solutions. So that's something I want to do. I think Now This Earth is another channel that does something like this, and exploring alternatives. And even a person named Rob Greenfield, some of you may have heard of him. So they do a lot of showcasing and demonstrating of real activities which mitigate change. And then classroom resources. The goal is really just to have these videos as a part of the curriculum, discussions or assignments if teachers are willing. The cool news is that the course for which I was a teacher assistant back at my university, my teacher likes my videos, so he shows them to the students for discussions, and it's being used. So I'm really happy about that. That's the whole goal, like inspiring people who are in college, who have not started their careers yet, and maybe shifting their mindset to, okay, no, I can actually pursue this as a career. This can be something I can be paid for, and I'm really passionate about this. So that's the idea with this channel. And then eventually, if I get to a point where I can actually earn from these videos, then fundraising and supporting impactful climate action oriented organizations or even education organizations, that's something I'd like to be really involved in, and supporting this through the channel. So that's the end goal. And yeah, so it's almost the end of the presentation. Ultimate goal is climate change is the umbrella, and then related environmental issues, combining that with social issues. All of that has to be talked about with solutions and examples of how do we do something. We have these issues, and the news focuses on the issues and how bad it is, but very few people are focused on, okay, here's actually what a good future can look like. And that's part of this effort of this channel, is to create these solutions, positive visions of the future, but acknowledging that, yes, we have issues, and no sugarcoating around that. And I'm not the only one, like I mentioned. There are many other channels, fascinating channels who I learn a lot from as well. So they include Our Changing Climate, Climate Town. Climate Town has fantastic, like humorous, entertaining videos on climate education. Then there's Becky Sphere. She's a good friend who's doing awesome climate journalism. So she's a really good source for climate news. Just Have a Think. You may have come across Dave Borlace on YouTube. He has amazing scientific data-based videos on not only climate change, but also sustainable energy, new technologies, and other environment-related topics. Climate Adam is another great YouTuber focused on climate education more specifically. Then there's Engineering with Rosie. Rosie Barnes is a wind engineer based in Australia, and she focuses more on sustainable tech, sustainable energy, renewable energy, and the issues and solutions there. Curtis Bowdy is a person based out of Canada, and he's also an amazing creator focused on environmental education. Sustainably Illustrated makes more animated videos on environment and climate education. So he has a whiteboard and draws figures and explains things, so that's really cool. And Dr. Ella Gilbert is another friend from England who is a PhD in climate science, Arctic science more specifically, and she also creates some great climate ed videos. So that brings me to the end, and I love this quote. It's the quote I try to follow on this channel and most of the work I do, even with mycelium, which is accelerating the circular economy. It's in order to change an existing paradigm, do not struggle to try and change the problematic model. Create a new model, making the old one obsolete. Just like cell phones made the landline obsolete because it was just much better. We need to think about what systems can make the current one obsolete because it's much better and works for all. So that's the end. And here's my social if you're interested. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much. That was so great.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was like snapping photos of your list of YouTube channels. I've certainly heard a few of those, but then I was like, oh, those are some I hadn't heard before. And I'm sure there's others that folks, if you want to drop in the chat, that are your go-to, like Catherine Hayhoe's climate global weirding.
Yeah, she as well, for sure. Definitely, definitely. She's awesome. Yeah.
I know there were some questions coming in on the chat. So earlier on, I think it was Frank was wondering, and I also was wondering about this, are some of your sources, like with some of the stats you showed earlier in your presentation, like where some of you were getting some of that? Those were pretty astounding bits of information. And Frank, I don't know if you had a particular one that you were that you were looking for on like the climate information or climate video being shown on YouTube. Is that the one you were sort of?
Yeah, it's the 7733. That one, like super duper important, but you sourced a lot of things, but that one I didn't catch a source.
So that was also from actually Avaz and a Vox article. I'll actually email you guys the report on that I sourced this from. So there's an extensive detailed report on climate information on YouTube. And most of this is from there. So I can just email that or let me find it and send it in the chat. So,
I have a quick follow-up if that's all right.
Yeah.
Jen, is that cool?
Oh yeah, of course. Go ahead, Frank.
Well, you're the facilitator. I mean, you know.
Yes, go. Yeah, go. I'm facilitating. Go.
So climate.gov at NOAA, I'm on that team. We've got a pretty good handle on pieces of the social media. And I was back channeling with my the social media lead, Tom DiLiberto. Would you be willing to kind of do this a rerun and kind of expand this conversation in a more tactical partnership after this?
I am very happy to do that. Yes,
because we need to make this similar pivot. You've made a compelling case, but we need to do our pivot as well, as because at NOAA we're very heavy on it's a problem, and it's a problem, and that's a problem. So it'd be great if we could figure out how to pivot.
Sure, sounds great. I'm really happy to.
Awesome.
It's great. I'm seeing other questions in the chat. Jim, you had a question earlier around how can YouTube channels better support one another and work together, specifically on action and solutions. So Frank's just invitation to sort of like exemplify that a little bit. But do you have any thoughts about that? Ankur, like what do you think might help?
I'm sorry, I was trying to read the chat and I did not hear properly.
No, sorry, it's okay. The question was, how can YouTube channels better support one another and work together, specifically on actions and solutions, since YouTube works a little bit differently than some other sites?
Right, absolutely. So one thing I'll mention regarding this is the channels that I showed at the end of the presentation, the other YouTube channels that focus on climate education. We're actually on a Discord channel. So we try to give each other feedback or share our videos. And that's how we are supporting each other. And some of us are doing collaborations. So I'm doing a collaboration with Beckysphere pretty soon, actually. And I did one with Our Changing Climate earlier in December of last year. So that's how we're supporting each other, featuring each other on our channels, sharing our videos and giving feedback to improve. As far as specifically on action solutions, I think a good way to do that is just sharing resources and giving feedback as to what other actions can you do, or sending resources. So yeah, I would say just having a central location for these channels, like Discord is pretty good, or Slack. And then it's pretty organic. Supporting is just organic from there, having these in a central group. So
Great. Jim's also just asking a follow-up question. If you could give an example or link of one of these collaborative channels.
Link of these collaborative channels, meaning a link of the YouTube channel, or do you mean?
I'm not sure,
Discord?
Jim, maybe you could clarify your question, and then I see Eric has his hand up.
Right. No, thank you, Jen. So very interested on the best methods and encouraging YouTube channels to work together. So you brought up a technique that you use. I honestly am not very familiar with that. So I'd love to know how do YouTube channels get together and work together?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Thank
So
you.
the way we find each other and the way we found each other, like Our Changing Climate, Charlie, who runs that, reached out to me via email. And the way he found out about me was through me commenting on his YouTube videos and saying, hey, I really like your videos. I'm trying to follow your footsteps, and then messaging on Reddit as well. So I think it is a difficult topic. It's a difficult challenge. But many of these climate or environment related channels are in a very small niche. I would say there are a total of 30, 40 channels, not more, who are focused on this exclusively. And some of them, like many of them, I know through that list I showed you. So the best way would just be, I mean, if you want, I can make a list of more extensive list of these channels and send it to you. But it's a very small bubble, and it's easy to find because these people we tend to comment on each other and support each other's channels. And I think that's the way we found out about each other. Yeah, I'll email you, Jim. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Eric, go ahead.
And thanks, Ankur, for a really great presentation. I really appreciate your approach, and so much of our clean calls have been focused on the very idea of solution-oriented kind of methods, and just sort of pivoting from, as Frank said, with Noah, like just completely changing the story. That's the paradigm shift, I think, that you're speaking of. And I just was curious because the same messages about your video, having the hook and then the call to action, and that was very similar approach to a group that I worked with called Digital Storytellers, which one of our clean leaders, Deb Morrison, put me in touch with in the fall. And I was just curious, so really like that. What length of video are you finding? Because the one I created with that group was 3 minutes, and it was very succinct. They used a lot of same kind of idea of some compelling images, adding music to the video that kind of correlates with the theme and the message. So just kind of curious about like length of video for that target audience that you shared, being the sort of mid-teenagers up to 35 or so.
That's a solid question, and I'm trying to actually experiment with the length at the moment. I've created videos anywhere between 3 minutes, like you mentioned, to 10 to 15 minutes. And what I find is that if the video is engaging enough, 6 to 7 minutes is the optimal range, 5 to 7, I would say. And recently I did a poll after I hit after I hit 2,000 subscribers, I did a poll of what length would you be willing to watch? Which videos do you want to watch more? 60% responded saying 5 to 7 minute videos, 40% responded saying 8 to 10 minute videos. So given that ratio, my plan is to create the videos in that ratio. 60% of videos will be 5 to 7 minutes, 40% of the longer videos. And I try to tend to find that the shorter videos are, engagement could be higher because people are willing to watch a shorter video more than a longer video in general. And so yeah, I'm actively trying to experiment with that. And I think 5 to 7 is the answer, optimal length.
Great, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, YouTube, you're right, Jim. YouTube has changed its algorithm. Rewarding channels with longer videos. It's not exactly longer videos, it's a longer watch time. So even if you have longer videos, like a friend of mine creates 20 to 30-minute videos, but she's not hitting the virality or like more views because it may not have the watch time. So the more watch time there is, like let's say you have a 5-minute video and people watch all of the 5 minutes. Let's say 1,000 people watch, that's 5,000 minutes. If that's higher compared to, let's say, a 10-minute video, but people watch only 2 minutes, 1,000 people watch 2 minutes, that's 2,000 minutes. The 5,000 minutes will be awarded more or rewarded more. So it's the watch time and the audience retention. And that depends on the audience retention, more the retention, more the watch time. So that's, yeah. Any, let's see, other questions?
Actually, I had a question.
Yeah, please.
What for you has been kind of the most rewarding part of the work that you've done so far? And then I guess the flip on that was like, what's been something that has been the most challenging with it?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Tamara. Thank you for joining. So the most rewarding part, honestly, has been this, like being invited for presentations like this, even talking about climate anxiety for climate science and other youth organization. All of these opportunities of helping spread the word has been the most rewarding to me. And finding new people, like I wouldn't have found the YouTube channels that I mentioned without doing this. So making new friends online, collaborating with new people, it's been the most rewarding thing. The most challenging thing has been video editing was a steep learning curve for me, especially like narrating, editing, making sure the video is engaging. It's really challenging. Like you can make simple videos without issue, but making them compelling, making them engaging, making them professional, that was a challenge. And I'm still improving, but I think I've gotten a lot. Like I can see these new videos and then my two years ago, the videos I started with, and I asked myself, what was I doing 2 years ago? Because it's embarrassing, but that's the way I learned. But, you know, anyone learns on YouTube. You start somewhere, and so, yeah.
It's super inspiring to hear that, having never
Thank
made a YouTube video myself. But I'm sort of feeling really inspired by your talk today and the resources and that have been listed in the chat. So I really appreciate that you took the time, and it's really awesome to see all the work that you're doing. Like is really incredible. I think folks are really excited that you were able to join us today and share some of that. And we'll be checking out your YouTube channel, and hopefully it sounds like following Frank, you and Frank will be connecting, and I'm sure there's more organic connections that will evolve out of this. So we're grateful for your time, Ankur, and it's great to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Of course, this is so great. We are at the top of the hour, everybody. That concludes another clean call. Stay tuned for next week, same time, same channel. And I hope everyone has a good week and is staying healthy and making it through the winter months. It's still deep winter here in the Adirondacks. I don't know what it's like everywhere else. But best of luck to everyone this week.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Be well.
And
Bye.
have a good one.
Thanks, Jen, for facilitating.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.